Exodus chapter 20, and we're going to continue on in our message series that we've called 10. And for those of you that may not have been here over the last several weeks, this is message number 7. It's the 7th week as we're going through the 10 commandments. So this morning we are on the 7th commandment, and this one is called Pursue Purity. And this one's going to be tough. We're just going to hit it head on. Okay, church? Amen. We're going to hit it head on. Let me kind of set the stage for this whole thing. Last week, we preached on a commandment that said, "You shall not murder." And in that message, here's kind of what I said. I said I felt like that as we came to that one, "You shall not murder," that probably out of all the 10 commandments, that may be the one where we have a walk-in, where we come in up front and we say, I don't know really how that applies to us. For most people sitting in the room, you say, I'm not a murderer. I haven't killed anybody. But by the time we left, I think we realized that Jesus went deeper into that commandment and said, you know, even if you're angry with someone and you have unforgiveness, Jesus said, even if you speak malice towards someone, if you speak harshly to someone, and or if you're envious of someone, Jesus said you might as well have murdered them because you have murder in your heart. And so here's what I did last week. For those of you that weren't here, it's not like you got off the hook, but I told everybody that was here that we were all murderers. So when we left last week, we were declared murderers. Now, this week's command, Exodus chapter 20, verse 14, it says, "You shall not commit adultery." Here's the thing with this one. We come into this one and we say, uh-oh. It's not like last week where we say, well, wait, you know, this might be a week off. With this one, there's an elephant in the room, and we know deep down that we're all guilty. So let's just go into it from that perspective. I want you to use your imagination for just a second. Think about these 10 commandments. You got them there open in your Bible. Use your imagination. What if we could keep all these commandments? What if we could really do it? What if we were able to keep these commandments? What if we always had our priorities right? What if we could perfectly fulfill commandment number 1 that we did the first week that says, there shall be no other gods before me? I mean, what if we could really put Jesus Christ at the center of our lives and we didn't ever treat him as if he is equal to anything else in our lives? What if we actually came to a point where we didn't put him down on the list, where other things in our lives took priority, whether it be work or money or other things, and those things weren't a priority, but Jesus Christ was at the center? What if we could actually do that? What if we always worshiped God in spirit and in truth? Like the second command, what if there were no idols? What if money wasn't an issue? What if relationships or the sin struggles that we have, what if none of that ever compared to Jesus Christ? What if we loved God so much that wasn't a problem? Commandment number 2, don't make for yourselves any idols. Or what if Josh preached on this one in week 3 when I was out of town. What if we never took God's name in vain? And you say, well, Pastor, I don't ever cuss and put God's name in the same sentence with it. It's not that, but what if we never took God's name lightly? What if we so reverenced the name of our holy God that we never took it lightly? What if we held it in such reverence like they did in the Old Testament, where we wouldn't speak the actual name of God, where we'd have to make up another name to say in its place because we revered it so much? What if we really took a day out of the week, 1 out of every 7, and one was drastically different than the other 6 if we really kept the Sabbath? What if worship here was so important to us that it was drastically different than any other time in our week? What if parents taught their children and lived out Christ in front of their children in such a real way that children couldn't help but respect and obey their parents? What if everyone you knew never thought of taking life, whether it be physical murder or sins of bitterness and anger and cutting words? What if instead of being life takers, we were actually life givers? And in light of today in this command, do not commit adultery, what if everyone you knew was faithful to their marriage? What if there was no lust? What if there were no affairs? What if there was no pornography? What if there was no coveting someone else's spouse? What if there was no misrepresentation of truth on television or in music? What if there was no pregnancy out of wedlock because people didn't have sex out of wedlock? And the reason I ask you to use your imagination is because we have to. We haven't seen that in our communities. We haven't seen that in our families. Not even in our own lives. We are all adulterers in some way. And it runs deep, and it's like an elephant in the room. I want to tell you a story. And I'm just to save, I would never publicly state a name. It's not anyone sitting in this room. But a story from my past. When I was growing up, I won't even say the time or place in my life because I don't want anybody to figure it out. But there was a time in my life where I knew a family, and I knew a family well. And they were the model family. Some of you may know families like this. I mean, they were Leave It to Beaver if there ever was one. I mean, they were the perfect model family. They were leaders in ministry. They had great kids. I was very close to that family. There was a lot of influence in my life. And the family was devastated by an affair. It ruined a testimony. It ruined a marriage. And the kids were never the same. And God showed me at that time that adultery and sexual sin makes an impact that goes far beyond what we could ever imagine. Not only does it affect you, it affects other people, and most of all, it is a sin against God. And God says in His Word that sin is sin is sin is sin, but there's something about sexual sin that's just different. It's a sin against your body. It's a sin against the body that God created. It's a sin against the image of God. God, listen to me, church. God created sex to be a good thing. Y'all say that with me. That's going to be really odd. Y'all just say it with me on 3. Let's just get it over with. On 3, let's just say sex is a good thing. 1, 2, 3. Sex is a good thing. Okay. Hey, it's a real good thing. But the Bible clearly says it's between a husband and a wife. Because sexual sin destroys. The 7th commandment, it's 2 words in Hebrew. In Hebrew, they just got to the point. No adultery. That's what it means in Hebrew. I know this. I don't just think it. I know this. Sexual sin is so rampant and so common in our society, and it affects everyone in some way or another. And on the surface, we might just to look at this sin, and like I said, we come in knowing we're guilty, and we might just write this one off as a loss. We might just tend to concede and say, it is what it is. We've gone too far. Our society is saturated, and the church is not immune. And we might just say, I give up on this one. I can't even go to Walmart without seeing someone who needs to put on more clothes or without seeing someone on the cover of a magazine that's offensive. I can't watch TV without a Hardee's commercial coming on. And a nearly nude girl trying to eat a half-pound hamburger that won't even fit in her mouth. We might say, I think I can work on the murder one. Or the one we're going to get to next week, that one about coveting. I think that kind of makes sense. I think I can work on that. But this sex one, this adultery one, I'm bombarded everywhere I go. And I kind of like it. I think that's the problem. A lot of other things seemingly could be worked on better. But the damage from adultery, church, is huge. The destruction is huge, and none of us are immune. 41% of married people in America admit. Now, that's just admit. That means, one of the commandments we're talking about is lying, do not bear false witness. So it's just the ones that actually admit. But many lie. 41% of married people in America admit to being unfaithful in a marital relationship. Get this one. This will nasty you out. 17% admit that it's with a brother or sister-in-law. The average affair lasts 2 years, and usually there's a divorce involved and kids separated from parents and alimony and brokenness and emotional scarring that never heals. People have bought into one of Satan's greatest lies, church. And the lie is this, that as long as two consenting adults want to be together, and if that's what makes them happy, then what's the harm? But what an atrocity of a lie. When there is marital unfaithfulness, what does it do to a spouse? You know what it does? It says, you're not good enough for me anymore. When a teenager decides to have sex because everyone else is doing it, it makes me feel cool or significant or cared about, what a lie. You're just sleeping with someone else's future spouse. You're taking the virginity of someone else's husband or someone else's wife. Something that was never ordained for you to take. And there will be consequences. Or what about when we click on the internet and we think it's harmless? No, that's someone else's daughter. That's someone else's son you're looking at. That's someone God created. And a majority of them have been forced into that industry through the sex slave trade. Did you know that Atlanta, Georgia is the most trafficked sex slave trade city in the United States of America and one of the top in the world? And we're just 3 hours from there, and if you drive real fast, you can get there quicker, I know. Most people in pornographic magazines, movies, and on the internet are pushed into drugs and are so gone that they don't realize what's being done to them and they don't see a way out. I was recently at the Catalyst Conference in Atlanta, and there were represented there 3 different organizations, and there are more, that are rescuing people in the United States out of the sex slave trade and the pornography industry every day. And they're putting them in rescue houses because billions and billions of dollars are made every year by pornography. It is a business. It is not sex by God's design. What does adultery do to a reputation? What does adultery do to a church? What does adultery do to children? Another great lie of Satan: have an affair because you deserve to be with someone who loves you and pays you attention. You'll be better off in the long run, and so will your children. What a lie. If it makes you happy, then just do it. What a lie. The lie is that children are resilient and that they'll get over it. No, they won't. Ask grown adults who went through one of their parents being unfaithful to their other parent and ask them if they got over it. Children who are victims of divorce are 50% more likely to get a divorce themselves. Adultery can and does cause great devastation. I say all that to say this: we haven't even gotten to the heart of it. The biggest deal to me about this command is not just these destructions and these consequences that come from breaking it. The big deal with adultery is that it breaks, listen to me real close, it breaks the covenant of marriage. God takes marriage seriously.